All right, welcome to Talkback On. This is our first show, so I'll start by introducing my co-host. We got Jae Chong, legend, pioneer, hit maker, producer, songwriter, and we are so excited to have you here. We also have KO, the only engineer that I trust that works on my stuff. So definitely, he's a guru when it comes to the technical side, and he works Pro Tools like he plays piano for sure. I don't know if and then we have me, Kairos. So thank you guys for tuning in. We want to share with you guys what we talk about as producers and songwriters, and hopefully that knowledge will inspire others that's listening here. So before we go on, Hoban, do you want to start with circuit board?
Sure. So, in this week's circuit board, what I want to share with you guys is a cool tip, especially using reverbs on vocals. I think when it comes to reverb, there's so much color and different styles that you can play with. So, hope you guys are able to get a kick out of this one. Hey, welcome, guys. It's KO here. Today on Circuit Board, we're going to be going over vocal reverbs today, and I wanted to show you guys different ways on how I approach vocal reverbs and allow you guys to kind of take what you learn here and experiment with your own projects. So here we go. So the track that we have here today is a group known as Twice. This is a song that Kairos and I wrote. And we are going to play with the chorus section here and solo out the vocals and just kind of play around with reverb. So here we go. So with the vocal soloed, recording is clean. I have some processing on there that just kind of helped me get inspired. But it does sound a little dry. So what I'm going to do is actually go through some reverbs and show you guys that there are different ways how I would approach it, especially with a song like this where it's a little bit more upbeat, up-tempo. You kind of want to be mindful of choosing the right kind of reverb rather than just slapping something on that works. So what I like to do is first have a mono aux track that I would send the vocals to. And this, I usually kind of designate it as like a plate reverb, only just to give it a little bit of life. But more importantly, just to kind of give it a bit of a tail, almost kind of like a slapback delay. So this is how I like to treat it. So I have a couple plugins here for you guys to check out and be able to use on your own projects. So I'm going to enable this first, and we'll check out the EMT 140 from UAD. This is pretty clean. Let's check out the next one. This one's called H-Verb from Waves. All right, so the tail's a little long for me. I do want to shorten that a little bit. Let's check this out. All cool. This is nice as well. Now let's check out the Deverb, which is a stock plugin with Avid. All right, this one seems a little too fast, so let's just bring this up a little bit. Great. So all of these plugins that you see here, they have a certain character, they have a certain sound, but most importantly, they give a little life to the vocals. It allows it to give it some space. So I'm just going to go with the H-Verb for now. I honestly think it sounds really good. So let's go with this one. And as you can see, I'm just putting a little bit of it. So we can even crank it down a little more. So now what I like to do is actually open up a stereo aux track and make this my designated vocal hall verb. So I'm going to open this up. I'm actually going to mute the Vox plate so that way you guys can hear the hall. And I also have 3 additional hall plugins that I like using as well too. So the first one I'm going to go with is Valhalla Vintage Verb. I do have a bright hall setting on it, but let's check this one out. Nice. This is really lush, really, it's very modern sounding. Let's check out some other ones. I'm going to check out the R verb. This one's pretty cool. All right, last but not least, D verb. As you can hear, hall verbs tend to give a lot more space to the vocals. It almost sounds like the vocalist is singing in a whole new room. And that's what you kind of want to achieve, especially in a mix, in any kind of project. However, for this song, because it is bright and it is a lot more up-tempo, I think the Valhalla Vintage Verb is the way to go. So let's hear both the vocal plate as well as the vocal hall together now. That sounds nice. As you can see, the plate and the hall reverb kind of work with each other. The plate being a shorter reverb time allows it to kind of come in a lot quicker, but then the hall is almost like an extension of the plate reverb, but obviously a lot brighter. And because it is in stereo, it's not really muddying up what the plate is doing. Now, there's one more trick that I want to show you guys, and this is what I've been using a lot more, especially with a tempo type of music, is actually sidechaining the vocals to the reverb. And what this allows me to do is actually have a little bit more control over the reverb when the vocalist is singing. And sometimes hall verbs can get really in the way, even though we do have a fast plate and a slower hall. The biggest thing that we want to try to avoid here is having the hall reverb take up too much of the other instruments that are part of the track and other vocals as well too. So what I'm going to do here is actually use the same Valhalla Vintage Verb that I used with the vocal hall reverb track here as well. However, I am actually going to send a pre-faders sidechain from my vocals and then open up this Wave C1 comp over here. I'm able to kind of use the vocal as my sidechain trigger. So I'm actually going to play it in pre-fader so you guys can hear more of the reverb and what it's doing with the sidechain compression. So you can hear the tail end of the reverb, and it's pretty cool how you can experiment with that, be creative with it, but most importantly, just have fun. See you guys. And we're back. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
All right. Yeah. So before we do the Q&As, I just need to ask Jae Chong this question: what makes K-pop so popular today? Because maybe many people don't know that K-pop's been around for some time now, and you are one of the main pioneers of creating the genre with Solid. So yeah, that would be a great question that I think many people would love to hear.
Oh, so why is K-pop popular? Yeah. Well, I think I would attribute to the whole Hallyu movement. That includes like K-dramas, K-beauty, all that stuff. Like combined, and music just becomes sort of the soundtrack for the whole thing. And and the music itself has a lot of flair and like a lot of I don't know like a lot of visual stimulation and a lot of audio stimulation, and it's just I would say it's what you consider like pop music at its purest form, and I think people really dig it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like, it's definitely, at some point, I think it was so unpredictable because we have all these different elements come together and somehow it works. And, but like you said, visually, I mean, they spend so much money on the music videos. I think, definitely that side of it is definitely attractive in so many ways. And absolutely, I think it definitely kind of creates more than just outside of the culture. It brings people in to get more involved with how we shape this genre. So definitely, as I mentioned before, just being, K-pop one generation. It's so funny that they call it first generation K-pop because like that's what I grew up on. That's what what I think is what made me fall in love with K-pop. But from that time to now, there's a lot of different things I think that's happened, and do you definitely see that like from that time it has evolved in a certain way that's more global?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think in terms of the marketing, I think it's made just like huge strides since like 20 years ago. We had a lot of support from the government. Like even at the government level, we had a lot of support, and Korean domestic market is it's a considerably big size market, but there's always that need to go abroad to broaden the market, and that's always been like the mission of K-pop ever since day one, I think. Yeah. And then now like with bigger companies and with a lot of like conglomerates actually like getting involved in the business, now we have like a lot more like resources to go further out.
Yeah. I remember. I mean, back then it was tapes. Like CDs were like kind of a luxury, and so in Chicago, where I grew up, there would always be one or two stores, somewhere in the city. So it would be some sort of bookstore, Korean bookstore, and you can purchase K-pop CDs or K-pop tapes, and so I because I didn't have all the access to the K-pop, music. I remember there was one show called Kayo Top 10 that, would air once a week where I lived. It would play back with a lot of feedback, and it was, it was hard to see what I was watching, but once in a while the antenna will just move it around until we got some color. And I remember, seeing you guys, seeing just so many great music come out of that time. And it was just so funny because I would put literally, my tape player or boombox or whatever else right against the TV just to try to get some recording. And if my dad coughed or something or family member, I'll have to wait another week to get that, song again, played again. So yeah, definitely. It's come a long way for sure. And, it's really exciting where it's going.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the fact that the music is digital now, like, you have access to it all over the world immediately, right? Like, back even like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, like actually getting physical CDs into different countries was extremely, extremely difficult. Like, you had to go through the major labels and the distribution channels and all that, right? And now you could just do that with like, whether it's Spotify or Apple, or you could get that in like, over 100 countries, like literally overnight, right? Yeah. So that in itself played a huge role, the internet and just the accessibility.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I remember I was in Korea one time, and I was trying to buy a Solid album. And so I asked the ajumma there, and I said, hey, how much is this? And she she knew I was from the States, so she was trying to sell it to me for, I think, $70.
What?
And I'm like, man, like, and it was a CD. It wasn't even, it was not even a tape. So she said, no, those things are, rare, and she said, you're not going to find that in the States. I'm like, well, yeah, and that's why I'm here. But, and I couldn't believe it. So I didn't buy it. I just had to wait till I had my opportunity later. But yeah, it's just fun memories, just trying to.
Yeah, man. There was that whole time. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Click to Asia?
Yeah.
Remember that? Like that was like the only way to buy CDs from the US, like from overseas. And like the CD would be like $15 and the shipping's like $50. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny just how I know that in LA it was more accessible, I believe, and I think if I'm correct, I think people had more concerts here. They had more people come out from Korea out visiting here, but Chicago wasn't so much that. It was definitely
Oh yeah, yeah. You grew up in Chicago, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So out here, like we had like little CD shops that just sold Korean CDs, and then so like this guy, like I lived in Orange County, so we'd go to like Garden Grove, and then there'd be that I forget what that CD shop was called, and then the owner used to always display like the latest K-pop CDs, and yeah, I remember going in there, and then he's like, trying to recommend something to me, and he's like, "Hey, have you heard of Satejwa Either? This is like the new thing, right?" And we're like, "What is this?" Right? And then I remember like he introduced that to us, like back in the day. Yeah,
That's hilarious. Have you ever gone into a store and like asked them about your albums?
yeah. I mean, like I don't know. I don't. If I mean, I have like maybe one copy of my CD, like so. Like I always try to get some for my friends or whatever, and I have to go into the store and ask for it, and then like sometimes like they'll be like, "Well, like you don't have any of these?" Like
I try to do that whenever I go out with some of the artists that I work with, and we would just like if we're at the mall, we definitely stop by the CD store and check with them. Hey, how's the CD doing? And just see how others look at it or purchase it, and it's just fun to watch that because we put so much work into these albums, and then when we see people purchasing it with their hard-earned money, and it's that whole process. I feel like it's so genuine. I think that's just so different from the digital world because we don't know what they're doing. They're downloading the songs and they're iTunes, but there's something about physical albums, I think.
Yeah, and also kind of like reading the credits inside and see who made the songs, who wrote the songs, and that's why, like, I think a lot of music producers were kind of like known publicly back then because people like saw their names on these albums. Like now, it's hard to see those credits unless you like go to Wikipedia or something and try to look for these credit lists.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first people that responded back to me, and back in the day, I would look at the CD credits and kind of reach out to some of the producers or engineers. And one of the guys that was so gracious, and I still remember, just like it was yesterday, Bob Horn, he responded back to me.
Really? Wow.
I think he wrote like a 2-3 page letter back to me. And it just meant the world to me because, I really wanted this opportunity to just get into the industry. And I was at the time the the chief engineer at a studio, but, he kind of told me, hey, LA, this is the big leagues, and out here, you have to have the mindset of starting over. So I just remember I sent this letter and he responded back and he basically told me, hey, come out, why don't you come out here and hang out with me for a little bit? And we'll chill. And so definitely like that all kind of started because every time I look back in the CD booklets, I'll see guys like Bob Horn or Dave Pensato, and Errol Chavez, Jason Joshua.
They're so cool, man. Yeah.
So definitely.
That's awesome.
Cool. Hoban, do you have any questions that you want to add?
Yeah, I actually have a question from Muji Sweater. Tips on becoming efficient at producing to make faster but good tracks, and how do you guys stay inspired when making a track going into a session?
Fast. That's the sort of the way we learned our craft. Actually, like when I did my first producing gig, it was for Taiwan actually, and the producer that sort of like mentored me at the time, he was known to make records really fast. So this is before Pro Tools. We're using like 2-inch tapes, like analog tape machines, and we would put together an entire album from beginning, like from composition, recording, arranging, recording, mixing, mastering, the whole thing within about a month. and these were like big albums. So like we needed like hit songs, and like we sort of worked at that pace. And so like if I learned anything from my mentor, this guy named Bing Wong, like that was like how to work fast. So like and how do you work fast? I mean, it's just I think we're all the same way, aren't we? Like when we have a deadline, we just crank it out. Like if we have like a month deadline, we'll just kind of sit around and wait for a month, and then if it's tomorrow, we'll crank it out tonight, kind of thing. And when the pressure's on, you just gotta like we didn't sleep. We just like work around the clock.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, we were at the mercy of the artist. Like if the artist isn't in a good condition to sing, then your whole day's like bust, right? Yeah. So like we have to make sure they're they're relaxed, they're healthy, and they're not going out partying, all this stuff. And that was sort of like that was a big bulk of it. I think like the psychological part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in terms of making music, I think we could crank stuff out pretty quickly. And I mean, where do you find your inspiration, Kairos? Just curious.
I totally agree with what you just said, because I think speed is definitely, it kind of takes you to the next level, or allows you to play at that next level, because someone is slow and they're not catching the right moments, or they're really missing some of those key parts that the artist is trying to preserve, or trying to, a lot of times it's like that catching the lightning in a bottle moments. It's like if you're playing solo, and if you do the perfect take where perfect to the artist, and they look over to the engineer and they're like, oh, sorry, like I didn't get that, man, you might not next time. So being able to be prepared and ready to go, and always being a step ahead of the artist, I mean, it all requires speed, and that comes a big time, big way.
Yeah. And also, I mean, like as far as finding inspiration, like I know a lot of artists who maybe put out one record every like a year, 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And like I don't know, most producers that I know, or like including myself, are like super ADD. Like we have attention deficit, like major, right? So like we're constantly like thinking of this stuff. So like I'm thinking like, man, how do you work on an album for 2 years? Like, it's like you go into the studio and like you lay down the snare track, and then like we'll come back like a week later and do the kick. Like how do you spend 2 years on a record? Like from my perspective, right? Like, so like, but some people work like that because they're either trying to tune into some sort of a inspiration, like, right? Like have some kind of emotional connection to something. So like I know guys who would go like maybe just like pack everything up and go camping for like a month, right? Like into the mountains, and just be at peace and try to write songs for the album and stuff like that. And for us producers, if we went at that pace, we'd all be starving, right? We'd all be broke, like, right? Like we can't make a living for writing 10 songs every 2 years, right? So we crank out songs like pretty much on a daily basis. So a lot of people ask, like, how do you do that, right? So for my explanation was always this, like if you have to depend on your emotions, like to be happy, sad, and different things for different songs, you literally you'll go crazy. Like if you have to write like 50 songs a year, doing that, right? Like you almost have to be like schizophrenic, like frantic, like going back and forth from emotions. So for me, I think I'm more like left-brained, like. I did this test, and it turns out I'm like almost 100% left-brained. Like I am completely like analytical and mathematical.
Yeah.
Like so, like I think at a certain point you just sort of kind of figure out a formula for like a like a pretty good hit type of songs.
Yeah.
Right. And you just and like a lot of people like have to say like, oh, I have to feel sad to write a ballad, and all this stuff. Like you can't count on things like that when you're on a schedule, right? Like if you gotta do like 3 dance songs and 2 ballads by in 2 weeks, you can't wait for yourself to feel sad about something. You just gotta crank it out, right? So like there's gotta be like a very kind of a how do you say, like a logical way to sort of put a song together.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah, I think what you just said is so true as a professional. And if you're doing it at a professional level, you can't be like, I feel like, I'm happy, so I just need to make happy songs. I mean,
Yeah.
Space, you definitely have to perform at a professional level, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're at the mercy of your emotions to write a song, I mean, yeah, often those songs do come out well, and I actually encourage that if you're a singer songwriter, like if you're an artist,
Yeah.
and you want something to sort of document your life and your experiences, obviously that's the best way to do it. But for producers who are like working with multiple artists, and we have to sort of kind of tune into their it's like telepathy, right? Like we have to connect the cables between our brain and their brain and try to think alike for that project, right? And so we have to be very quick to kind of assess all that, like, right? As soon as you meet an artist, like, okay, what, like usually when I meet an artist, like we don't work on music, we just hang out, like go drink coffee, go drinking, hanging out, talking for like maybe like 2-3 weeks, and then the very last week we'll just like crank out like all the songs together, right? And it's just kind of like trying to figure them out and see where they are in life and all that stuff, and that I think, and then try to make sense of all that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think definitely, like, if we just spend time on following that, like you said, I think it's so important that we do watch the clock, because a lot of times, we do have deadlines, but it's just part of our, I think, job, to make sure that everything does move forward and we perform, at high levels at all times, which is hard because, like, people don't know this, but when you walk in a room, generally what you walk into is you have A&Rs, you have managers, you have the artists, you have, all these different personnels in there, and they're looking at you like, all right, let's see what you got, and you have to go in there and just do it. You have to perform, and you have to make sure, and because they're all expecting a hit out of you. They're not, they don't invite you just to go like, all right, let's see, let's play around and see what happens. But I do share this with the A&Rs a lot. I always tell them, sometimes it's more important to have conversations and really enjoy each other and really enjoy the process more so than creating the music itself. Because I think when you do spend that time, like you said before, enjoying the people around you and really creating that vibe, you want to do a little more. You want to come back and maybe even just patch up something, and it's just because you really care about the whole process more so than just one day in a studio. And so I think definitely the people element is so important. Just when we work in an environment when it's always creative, and as creative people, we definitely vibe off of energy. So yeah.
And I think like in ideal situations, you get to sit down with the artist and discuss, right? And then less than ideal situations are like you never meet the artist, and you just gotta like basically deal with A&Rs and kind of just deliver tracks, right? Or like or you do writing camps or something, sessions where you're in rooms with like 5-6 other guys, and like you gotta crank out like 3 songs per day type of deal, right? So like a lot of those situations are different, and for producers, like we have to always be like prepared for anything, like and something always goes wrong too, right? So and we have to be very good at damage control and all that. So yeah.
Man, damage control. I'm sure, Hoban, you've engineered countless of sessions. You have like one crazy story. It's the engineering and, troubleshooting has always been a big part. I remember even being at school, I took a lot of courses just on troubleshooting, just because we're gonna run into that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think every studio that you walk into is like walking into like a new room or something. You always have to be familiar with your surrounding, and just by looking at what their setup is, you kind of have to know right off the back, from signal flow all the way down to what kind of setup that they're using. But I think writing off of inspiration, these whenever we go into studio sessions, as engineers, you kind of have to be mindful of that, and you're in there as pretty much to be part of the vibe. And one session that I was in, it was actually was a cool session between like a A-list artist as well as an artist from Korea. And but you know, like in the middle of their recording, they decided they got this solid hook, and they said, "All right, let's go out for a drive." And they bounced the song, and then I emailed it to them, and then they went on a drive, and I think they were on like a Rolls Royce, and they went on a drive, and they just left me at the studio, and then it wasn't until like 5 hours later. This was already like 3 a.m. So 5 hours later, it was like 8 a.m, and they came back and they said, "All right, I think we're done here." And they just. But I think just being part of that is, I think it's crucial, you know, because this is where ideas actually get to come to life. So, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. How much has fandom culture changed? You guys think? Like, because I know, Jae Chong, you've seen the fans from back in the day to, and I'm talking specifically about just even the music culture in Asia, and the fandom culture is really something, and I think like for me, even as a producer, there are times where I have to really be careful what I say and be more sensitive to certain things, because the fans do care, and absolutely, we obviously care about what they receive, the information they receive, and sometimes it's just so accessible, in a lot of ways. It's like fans can reach out to the creators also get that feedback and energy.
Sure.
And so maybe we can kind of touch on that a little bit, just to see what the fans mean for this industry.
I mean, fans mean like everything to the industry. I think Korea was very, K-pop was very smart in sort of like focusing on the fans from day one. There's always been like, so every time we do like, we set up like a record company or, production company, or, even back in the day, like we would always have somebody who's in charge of the fan clubs, right? Who was in contact with the fan club leaders and all that. And then, so like when we did shows, we would have designated areas where our fans would sit, and, they had, different colors of clothing and, balloons or whatever they had, so if when we're performing on stage, like we could look out into the stadium and we could see like sections of different fans, and that culture was there ever since I can remember, like from the early 90s. Right. And like the fan base right now is like pretty crazy, right? I mean, because it's become international as well, but even like in the early 90s, when I would say like the craziest fan base that I've witnessed with my eyes was probably Sateji fans, right? I mean, they're just absolutely bananas. I mean, it was nuts. Like there were just so many of them, and and they were so organized and so like mobile. Like, it was crazy. Like every time you go to a show, you could just see like an army of them, like in the stadium, just taking up like the entire space, like, right? So, and for the most part, a lot of that has stayed the same. It's just that like now the Western world has become, kind of exposed to that. And, like here, back in the day, they had like, or even today they have, the Believers, like Justin Bieber fans and like hardcore fans who kind of, group themselves and, move like as a group, right? But like, that's just, I think, like sort of scratching the surface of what the real fandom is. Like the K-pop fandom is like on a next level. Like, like you don't see too many like Western fans buying like 10 of the same CDs, right? Just because they're all in different colors or, whatever, like, right. Or, you don't see fans like flying to Europe to buy a CD and flying right back, right? Korea, like we get fans from all over the world just flying into Korea just to purchase merch, from the band, and just like to go back to give to their, other fans in different respective countries, right? And, yeah, that's pretty, that's pretty crazy. Like, it's awesome.
Something about, the K-pop culture. I mean, it's fascinating how you're still able to sell physical albums, and I think, especially in a digital age still, it's something that, it's definitely, it's just incredible just how in that space we're still selling albums.
Yeah, and the CDs aren't really for like listening enjoyment either. I mean, they stream the music on Spotify or Apple or whatever, like the digital platform. They just have it as merch, like a souvenir, right? So it's sort of a collector's item for the fan base, which is like a very different approach to CDs. I think a lot of the Western, record companies still approach CDs as like a form of like a music format, right? And to be honest, that format's been dead for like years, right? Like I think if anything, people purchase CDs as a like a souvenir more than anything now, right?
Definitely.
All right. I have another question here. Tips for getting over writer's block when having the motivation but not the inspiration.
Well, kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like inspiration is quite important sometimes. Like you have to work with no inspiration sometimes, but like preferably it's best to have them. And usually like what I do is like I just stop working on something and I'll just go watch a movie. Watch like a Netflix movie or something, or I'll go for a drive. And like, or like, I'll just kind of like go on Splice or something and just like listen to a bunch of different samples and just kind of get inspired from that. Like,
that's actually awesome. Inspiration is such a interesting thing because a lot of times people depend on inspiration, but I love how you create inspiration because, I remember having these like great talks, even like sometimes I have talks with interns and they go, man, like how come every time I talk to you I get super motivated? And then I always end it with this. I say, well, that's the part that's really hard. It's not that you find inspiration, it's that you got to inspire yourself, because if you're not if you're not inspiring yourself but you're kind of waiting for the inspiration, then I think you're gonna miss your moment. And absolutely, I think I try to listen. It's weird because I listen to a lot of older records because I try to go back to that feeling, like that excitement that I had. Of course, like there are a lot of things that have changed, but I think when you go back to some of those older records, for me, I love just remembering that feeling and thinking like, man, I wish I wrote that, or I wish I.
Oh yeah.
So I have some of those records that you've done, where I'm just thinking like, man, this is so good. Some of the, I think you mentioned last time the first Solid album, it just captures so much feeling, I think, and I think that I'm sure all your fans would agree, but it's like one of those timeless records, and maybe like that is something that is I don't know if it's lacking, but it's definitely not something that people kind of think about, when they monitor songs and things like that. But
and also, I mean, like inspiration is like, I love what Timbaland once said, in his documentary, right? He says like, I am permanently inspired.
Wow.
Right. And I was like, Yeah. And the thing is, like, when you're working at that level, like you are, like it's so exciting, like this whole thing, right? And sometimes, of course, like when you're physically tired, then like all the ideas just like, it's kind of like when you're physically tired, you kind of like blow up everything in your mind, right? Like even little problems seem so big, right? And you limit yourself. So a lot of times, just getting rest and just kind of taking a breath and just kind of taking a little break away from the computer or the instrument and just and then coming back is probably the best like way to like revive yourself, like just getting rested, right? And I think a lot of producers work like ridiculous hours and they get really burnt out physically, and then so like when you're forced to create a track, to me the hardest thing is like going from like let's say like a hip hop track, and then immediately after we have to record a ballad or something. Then it's just like it's just so hard for me to get into that mode, right?
Yeah, that's true. I think it's so funny too, because like, how do you go from like that whole vibe of like hype and everything into just really
Yeah.
and set the mood for that?
Yeah, and then so I mean, usually when I finish a song, finish a song and like maybe record it and whatever, I usually take about a week off just to kind of, kind of cool my brain down again, and then to restart, and then I move on. But but that's when I have the luxury of doing that. Sometimes you don't, right? Like you have to move right on to the next song,
Right.
or whatever, and you just have to keep pushing, and get it done.
Yeah, I even this past week, one of our producers said that he kind of took a few days off, and it was one of the best decisions that he's made this week to do that, because he's like he kind of like lacked not just only inspiration but like motivation to get back in, and
Sure.
stepping away kind of was like a palate cleanser, where now he's like I'm really wanting to get back in there and do it again.
Yeah, and also like kind of like how we're talking about stuff, like with when you converse with people that are doing music like yourself, right? And when you actually talk to other people and even collab like with other people, you get inspired just being around other people that are like inspired.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes when you lock yourself in a room and the thing that artists like we all do is like one day we're like, yeah, like we're killing it, and then the next day we're like, oh my god, like just put a blanket over our head, just like, oh, I'm the worst, like it kind of goes back and forth, right? So when you're in that mode and you're by yourself, like it's really hard to lift yourself up, right? So like you need to vibe with other artists and sort of like get yourself back up, get your morale back up.
Yeah. I mean, I learned a lot of my mixing chops from Dave Pensato, and I remember like when we would start a new song, we would spend majority of the day just having conversations, and then like around like I think like 6 or 7 p.m. we would start the mix, and then do it for a few hours, and then kind of get back and forth, and then it'll start picking up, and of course Dave, he's such a professional, so we get to the point, and before you know it, right before the deadline, we're done with the whole thing. So it's just amazing, because I think at a certain point in this profession, you learn to bend time in a certain way. I feel like as a professional, you get to manage time or bend time, as I would say, like kind of to your advantage, or just the way you want to work with your creativity. And it's almost like you're not looking at it the same way as everybody else maybe from a 9-to-5 job, or someone that has a schedule every single day.
Yeah. So I mean, so if you're songwriting at home for your personal pleasure, or trying to get yourself ready for professional gigs, like you really have to self-motivate yourself and like keep on a certain schedule and regimen. Like just you can't just like be kind of like free floating constant, right? Because once you get to work, then they'll make you like they'll set a deadline for you for sure, like, and you have to meet it. Like you can't work professionally and not meet deadlines. Like just doesn't go hand in hand. Yeah.
I have a really good question, because I think everybody here, we also have the balance to and have the responsibility with our family. We have families, and we have we have to balance family life and also work life. So what would you or what kind of advice would you give for that balance? How would you balance that with what we do?
Oh man, like, well, like I have 2 girls, right? So the first one, to be honest with you, I think ever since she was born until she was about 7 or 8, I was never home.
Yeah.
Like I was always away. I was never home for Christmas, never home for birthdays, no anniversaries, nothing. And I was just very busy. And then like it wasn't until like she was like 7 or 8 that I got to kind of like stay home for a lot of things. And when I had my second daughter, I told myself I really need to balance my family life with my professional career, right? So like now it's like my family is like first. Yeah. So like before, like I'd be like it's just on a call, like just anytime. Like if an artist calls like 3 in the morning, like oh yeah, like I'm back working. Now it's just sort of like okay, I'm not working on weekends. I sort of draw lines like. Okay, like on the weekends, I got to spend some time with my family.
Yep.
and I'm not gonna work 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Like I just kind of work. I try, right, to kind of set boundaries and set some time for my family.
Yeah.
And it's the only way, you could actually spend some time with your family, Like,
yeah, I think that is such an important thing for a lot of people out there to hear, because I actually just started doing that where I'm actually setting more time, like where I wouldn't say necessarily more time, but I'm definitely managing time where I'm setting time aside for family. I'm setting time aside for work, time aside for myself at times. And I think this type of balance is needed as much as we focus on our careers and all these things.
Yeah, I think during the pandemic, like I think it was the first time that I got to spend this much time with my family, and then I think now my kids are like, okay, can you please like leave, like go on a business trip or something, like, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
My kid, my second kid, he asked me, or maybe it was even my first one too, and he said, "Hey, are you going to be around for my birthday this year?" And that made me so sad, because I was like thinking, like, they know that oh man, dad or appa's going to go away, and I wonder if he's going to be around for my birthday this year. So
yeah,
it's like those moments where I think, man, like I'm not going to get these moments back. It's not like,
oh yeah.
So definitely, I think having that kind of perspective too really helps kind of plan out the future.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I think there's times where I forget I have a family. I'm just like overseas for like 4 or 5 months or something. I'm just hanging out and making music, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I have a family, But now I'm completely like different about that whole thing.
Yeah. Does your daughters have a favorite salad song?
I don't, well, they like. I think they like the ballad, the Ibama Kuzijaku, like this. Oh. Like I hear them singing that.
Yeah. that was a classic, and yeah, I mean, I think maybe we can kind of maybe have a episode where we break that down. I would love to hear more stories on just how that came about, because I don't think there's ever a Norebang session without that song on the playlist. And usually I feel like it's at the end, where all the guys that can sing want to kind of show off their chops. So they, for the later, I guess, whatever, the playlist or whatever. But definitely, that's awesome. Cool.
Awesome. So here's another question. What would it mean to be successful in music to you guys?
Success. Well, success is very, very relative, right? Like, some people, success is like just paying bills and like having no worries. Some people like success is like, having the cars, big house, money, and everybody has different definition of success. For me, I feel like I'm successful if I don't have to worry about like stuff, like money, or just like I like to protect my peace, right? Like if anything's stealing my peace, like you could have a lot of money and have zero peace in your life, right? Like like you're constantly traveling, or like you're around a lot of toxic people or whatever. If I could just like maintain doing music as my full-time job, right? And and make enough to maintain a living, like to me that's success, and doing what you love, right? And and again, like being respected by your family as well as your colleagues, just and you're loved by them, and that's to me is success.
Cool. Nice answer, guys. Now I have to ask this question just because I'm an engineer myself. Now your house catches on fire. You're able to save your family, your pets. What is one thing that you would grab from your studio/home?
Oh, that was easy. My computer, the brain, of all the stuff. Like my files, man. Everything else could be replaced, right? So yeah, for sure. I grabbed my my iMac.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, what can be more important than that? You know, it's like that's where everything is. I'm sure there was a time when it's like the 2-inch tapes, right? It's like, man, you know, those things are so heavy.
Yeah, you could probably only grab like 3 of those. Like,
man, I don't even know. I would probably say the same thing because everything is in there and all my sessions are there. And this is so stupid of me, but I don't have enough. I haven't backed up enough sessions, and I should. You know, I absolutely should. Sometimes I feel like I kind of take that risk where I go overseas and I haven't backed up some of the sessions, but I just still take that, you know, one hard drive with me. It is kind of playing in the back of my mind where I'm like, what if something happens to it? Then I'm really screwed, you know. But that's something that I need to definitely work on, just backing up files. And because I think the hard drive is what I would probably go for.
yeah.
Oh, but yours is probably the 1073.
Oh, the Holy Grail! You gotta grab that.
It's a toss-up. I mean, I agree. It's nowadays it's got to be the computer because you can make all your music on there. And but yeah, that 1073 it's almost too hard. I would cry if I lose it.
I do everything in the box anyway. So like, if there's a fire, I just take my computer and just re-download everything from the cloud, and I'll have my setup back pretty much the same way.
I'm running my mic right now through the UAD 1073. What is that called? The real time feature?
Oh, the unison.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
It's definitely a game changer for sure. Like, I mean, I literally I'm running it through also the CL1B, and
Yeah.
actually I have the actual unit, and I have no complaints. I mean, we can kind of like A/B and try to really nitpick the difference and all the nuance, but I mean, I have no complaints when it comes to that. It's just,
Yeah. That's my vocal chain anyways, like the 1073 and the CL1B plugins. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, we got the real things right here.
I know, dude.
Cool. Yeah, I think, this, hopefully everything here we just talked about was very interesting because I definitely had a lot more insight to just, even revisiting some of those, stories and the details that go into the production and songwriting and our attitudes. I think we talked a lot about just how we approach our process and music itself and how it's being created. So I think this is great, and and hopefully from even Hoven's circuit board, you guys get to kind of pick out some of the details and how that is created, and we covered reverb. And we'll definitely talk more about these things, and we look forward to having you guys join us next time. Thank you guys so much, and we look forward to doing this again very soon.
Awesome.
All right, take care.